We now move on to our next speaker. Lama Alghofaily is from University of Lincoln in the UK, and she's going to be talking about a topic that we are all very much interested in, which is about leadership in higher education in Saudi Arabia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lama Alghofaily. I'm a PhD candidate in my final year. Please forgive my bad voice. My topic is women leadership in higher education in Saudi Arabia. So I work at University Princess Noura University, the largest women university in the whole world. I work as a lecturer, as a chairperson department. I've been in leadership position, private sector as well as governmental sector. I faced several barriers, challenges. Leadership concept interests me for such a long time, so I'm so happy that I start my thesis on it, and my final journey is now. So I'm so happy to share my findings, my research, my themes. I'm so glad and honored to be here. I used to be with academician, researcher, purely. So I'm so happy that to be here with different background. So I'm honored to be here with you. So we start with background. Background of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia ranks low on women participation in workforce, very high in gender gap. And that's obvious from 2016 to 2015. Glass ceiling is a very commonly encountered barrier for Arab women. Glass ceiling is metaphor used to present artificial barriers that faced women. Then later on, they've been used for a minority of people in order to achieve a certain level and hierarchy. The 2030 vision is aimed to addressing some gender-based issue and women empowerment. 2030 vision is a governmental vision, a governmental plan to reduce the dependency on oil and diversity, the economy of the country, working in infrastructure, health sector, education, and several agenda. The most interest one for me, obviously, is the women empowerment. Scientifics of study. This research looks at the barrier to women leadership in Saudi Arabia at the present context, as the present context is really delicate, controversial, if I could say, because all the past researchers look at the history of the woman. So this transformation, if I say, with a new movement in Saudi Arabia, this research explores and evaluates the possible solution for the perspective of the people who are affected by these barriers. Reducing gender inequality is critical for achieving the 2030 vision on the barriers to women and leadership in Saudi Arabia. Key contribution. The aim of this research is to investigate the key barrier affecting women accession to leadership position in Saudi Arabia. This research also investigates how and why these internal and external barriers affecting progression to women toward leadership in Saudi Arabia. Consequently, this research explored the policies that could eliminate these barriers and consequently reduce the glass ceiling effect in Saudi higher education sector. We will move to literature review. Women often face barriers to leadership position, and education sector is no exception. Social, traditional, cultural, and policy-related provision pose a barrier to women empowerment in Saudi Arabia. Skill diversity is quite low among Saudi women, unfortunately. Professionals and teaching is one of the careers that are preferred by the majority of Saudi women. Lack of opportunities affect women's accession to leadership. Some self-imposed barriers affect women employment in Saudi Arabia. For example, family responsibilities could affect work commitment and consequently women's accession to leadership. Often organizational structure promote patriarchal values that creating barriers for women's accession to leadership positions. Literature gap. Current literature doesn't take into consideration the recent policy reform, such as the 2030 vision. Current literature does not talk about the policy that help women overcome self-imposed internal barrier to accession to leadership in Saudi Arabia. Current literature doesn't address specifically the question, what kind of policies and steps must be taken to overcome these barriers that Saudi women face trying to reach to the top position in higher education. Methodology. The philosophy, this research is pragmatism. Method is mixed method. Sample, Saudi Arabian female universities. Data collection, got a survey first based on the literature. We got 253 female leader response. Interview, we got 15 semi-structured interviews in 3 different universities in Saudi Arabia. Data analysis, statistical analysis for the survey data, and thematic analysis for the interview data. Finding from the quantitative, from the questionnaire. 5 scale of women leadership were measured by 51 items in design questionnaire. The total sample, as I said previously, 253 female. The general findings were the challenging here, organizational challenge. The overall result was agreed there is organizational challenges. There is an organizational barrier in higher education in Saudi Arabia institution. When we look for the qualification-based differences, is there any differences based on the qualification of the response? There was none. About the cultural challenges, we move to the cultural challenges. What is really interests me was the cultural challenges from the quantitative data. The overall participants, they disagree there is a cultural challenge. On my SPSS, I was talking with them. Are you living in the culture that I live with? So yes, but I was surprisingly they disagree. And again, there is non-qualification-based differences. Personal barrier, most of the participants, they agree there is a personal barriers. And is there any qualification-based differences? Interestingly, there is a differences based on the qualification of the response. Women in leadership roles, all of them, they agree there is a challenges in general, and there is, again, non-differences based on the qualification. We move to the findings from the semi-structured interview. Organizational barrier. This is the general theme. We look up several barriers and we look how many they agree, how many they disagree, and how many of the response were neutral with it. So we look at not considered for top position, 12 they agree, while 3 they're neutral, they prefer to stay silent, not having any comment. Lack of authority, power, 12 they agree, and 4 were neutral, sorry, 2, forgive me. Lack of decision-making opportunity, 11 they agree, there is a lack of a decision-making. For example, not giving opportunity to obtain required qualifications, 6 they agree, 5 they neutral, and 4 they disagree. Lack of clear promotion criteria, 10 they agree. They agree, and it's a barrier, and 0 disagree. 5 they were neutral on that. Lack of required connections, 4 they agree. For us, 3 they disagree, and 8 were neutral on that theme. We look at the cultural barrier. Interestingly here, where we have a mixed method to have an in-depth data, we find the cultural barrier at the point of view of all the response, they agree and highlighted it is the most barrier that affects Saudi women when they are on their way for the leadership positions. So, for example, negative perception of women in leadership, 8 they agree, and 1 disagree, and 6 they were neutral. Negative perception of women leadership style, 13 they agree, and 2 they were neutral. Lack of family support. Family support means when they are on their own family with mom and dad or their husband. So both in this theme. So they were 8 they agree, it's a barrier, and 3 they disagree, and 4 they were neutral. Lack of peer support, 6 they agree. Interestingly, the tribal tradition. Saudi Arabia, it's a very tribal system. So 15 they were agree. It is a barrier, and this is the sample. It was full of the people they agree with it. Finally, the family norms, 13, quite big number. They agree. Finally, the personal barriers. Lack of confidence to lead, 11. And 2 to disagree and neutral. Lack of motivation to lead, 9 they were agree. 4 they disagree, and 2 they were neutral. Lack of management training and experience, 13 they agree, which is quite big number, and 2 they were neutral. Lack of capability to lead, 6 they agree, 7 they disagree, and there's none of them was neutral. Policy recommendation. It's a self-report study. So the women in the position, the women who's faced these barriers, they recommended that government should be explicit in word and action what it wishes to achieve toward women empowerment. Lack at fair distribution of power from early stage to equip women from leadership role. Improve the quality of leadership training for women using the feedback from the women themselves. Increase recognition of achievement of women at national level. Acknowledge and highlight the achievement of a woman using various media channels. Use social media platforms for communicating the values toward women empowerment. And this is my reference. I would be more than happy to answer any question of the chair. Thank you so much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.